All right, everybody. So now we're going to take a little jaunt into a little more complex orienteering skills. And that is, we want to figure out distances. Now, distances in orienteering, the more exact you can be, the better. But realistically, when you're going out hiking through woods or even on, you know, undulating terrain, going up and down hills and all that stuff, the distance can be a little bit difficult to figure out because you have to go around trees or your steps get bigger or smaller depending if you're going uphill or downhill. So we want to figure out the most accurate measure of distance you can create with your own steps. Okay, so we want to figure out what one pace for me is. All right, and that would be for you in this case because you really don't care about my pace. All right, here's what it is. Let me get where I can click here. One pace is 2 steps. We're going to count every time here our right foot hits the ground. So we don't count that one, we count this one, right? So the distance between my 2 right feet hitting the ground is 1 pace length. Now that's going to be important that I'm only counting my right foot because it's easier to count 1 foot steps than 2 feet steps. You're just counting higher numbers and more likely to lose track at some point. It's okay if you decide to count your left feet, that's fine. Actually, it's kind of recommended you count the foot that you normally start with. So if you are standing there and you take a step forward, which foot do you start with? And now that I've said that, you're probably going to think about it. But you want to kind of start with that one and you count every time that that foot hits the ground. Okay, so here my right feet are what I'm going to be counting. All right, and that's just kind of reiterating that point. So to figure out how far your pace length is, the first thing you want to do is actually measure out 50 feet. So you want to get a tape measure out or a yardstick, and you want to go out to an open flat area and measure out 50 feet. Put a little stick on the ground at the start and a little stick on the ground at the finish, and make sure that you have 50 feet that you can walk. Okay? Second, we're going to count how many paces every 2 steps you walk that distance naturally without exaggerating steps or taking little tiny steps. So here, I'm going to start. I start walking, I have my left foot out, and then I'm going to count my right feet here. Okay? So it takes me, when I walk, 10 paces. My right foot hits the ground 10 times in 50 feet. So if it takes me 10 paces and the distance is 50 feet, I'm going to divide 50 by 10. And that means that every pace I take is 5 feet. Now that worked out really evenly for me. Isn't that nice? But it may not be quite such an even amount for you. So you can do one of two things. You can either adjust your pace and say, okay, I'm going to adjust my pace so that it fits 10 paces for every 50 feet. And I'm just going to remember that and drill it and drill it and drill it until my body just remembers that distance. Or you can just take your natural pace, divide it, and just do the math on it. Okay, so if I know my pace is 5 feet per pace, because I just figured that out, can I figure out how many paces it'll take me to go 100 feet? Well, think about that for a minute. If I have directions that say go 100 feet northwest, well, how do I know what 100 feet is now that I know that my pace length is 5 feet? It's easy. I just divide 100, that's the number of feet I'm going to travel, by 5. And that means I've got to walk 20 paces, 20 times my right foot's going to hit the ground between here and the direction I'm going. So what if the direction was 38 feet? What do I do? Well, same thing. I'm going to divide 38 by 5. And that means I have to go 7 paces, and then there's a little bit more, 3 feet more. So maybe another step forward. And that's going to give me the right distance. All right, now you've drawn a map of an outdoor area. If you were in the gym, you have even drawn and followed a map indoors. Now what I want you to do is figure out the distances between the different landmarks on your map. So I want you to write in on your map the distances between things. Like in my backyard, it'll be the distances between the trees, distance between the shed and the swing, the distance between the swing and other trees. And I want to find the perimeter distance of my area. So I would walk the perimeter of my backyard and figure out how far in feet all of those are based on my pace. And I'm going to line up everything and just kind of tell the distances. Then after that, if you have a family member or a friend that you want to give a course to, you can make a course based on those distances. So you can make kind of a basic course. You can say start at the shed and you're going to walk, whatever, 10 paces to the west. And then they're going to follow that and they'll end up at my swing, right? And then you can say, all right, I want you to head 8 paces north. And that might end up at a tree or something like that. So think of a course and see if you can make a course that a family member or a friend can follow. All right, go ahead and get started.